What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down what the data is showing for Tesla, what's going on in China, and also a big update from Elon Musk as we have some very big news that came out involving Twitter. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details about Twitter and talk about how this may affect Tesla for the future, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner, so don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. Not only benefits me, but benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any of these 12 free stocks could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 3 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So in my previous video, guys, I predicted that Tesla would come down into the open, down to this like 215 level. We'd get a nice bounce and start pushing up. And I predicted we would actually see Tesla around this like 222 level, maybe a little bit higher, 225 around there. We ended up actually doing something very similar, except instead of getting stopped at like 225 to 222, we ended up actually pushing well above 226, which was previous major resistance. And Tesla is showing a lot of strength right now. We managed to push almost to about 230. We came very close to it, and the market is looking very strong. So why on earth, where there's so many people talking about how the market was very shaky, we were very nervous? And that's because of the fact that the market yesterday was not in the best of states, and there were some very big red flags. If you look at the like dollar index, for example, we actually saw this thing make some very interesting moves yesterday. We actually saw this thing begin to pump pretty hard, and we know the correlation this actually tends to have with the markets. What's interesting is when this thing was pumping up, it did look like it was hitting major resistance. It was getting ready for a massive pullback, which made people very apprehensive. On top of that, we saw lots of big money investing in the long-term treasury yields. This means that they were moving money away from the stock market temporarily, and they were just getting ready for something big to come. If you look at SPY real quick, the SPY broke below 380, which was major support, and people were very apprehensive because of this. Now, the reason why people like you and me were very nervous is because of the fact that when you look at the markets, all right, when you zoom out, we had earnings coming. And when earnings came out, we saw lots of big disappointments here and there. For the most part, things were okay, but there were some big disappointments like Amazon. Their Q4 forecast was not necessarily the best. And because of that, the same thing could also be said about Apple. Amazon took a huge hit. It was down like 20%. It was down like 6% for the day. And typically, when we see big tech companies like this having such, horrible earnings, taking huge hits, the market tends to come down. That's what tends to happen. All right. So the analysis of the market seems lots of chop and maybe some downside today was not necessarily bad. However, we have something completely different that's going on. The market is a giant facade right now. I'm not saying this to incite fear. I'm saying this because this is the truth. When it comes to inflation, it's high. When it comes to our economy, it's not in the best of states. When it comes to China, we're seeing more lockdowns, right? All these things are not good for the economy, and yet the stock market continues to pump. Why is this? One good reason is because of the fact that we have midterm elections this year, and the market is artificially being pumped up. On top of that, market makers are incentivized to start pumping the market up during times when people load up on puts too much. If one side is too over leveraged, the opposite tends to take effect. And we are seeing this big midterm rally. So now it's looking like the market's very bullish and we should continue pushing up. However, there's one thing that concerns me, one thing that makes me nervous. That is, on November 1st to the 2nd, we have the FOMC meetings coming up very soon. November 2nd being the bigger date when the new rate hike is going to be announced. So if the Fed is like super hawkish and gives us a 75 basis point hike, that's not fully priced in just yet. So there's no guarantee the market's going to continue to rally. The market might actually become shaky temporarily during this time. Now, if we do get 50 basis points, if the Fed is not as hawkish as before, right, this could actually lead to the whole narrative from the Wall Street Journal that came out that actually started this big rally. The narrative that the Fed may pivot sooner than anticipated, that's going to give them more merit, even though that's not necessarily the truth. This means that the market will likely continue to rally approaching midterm elections, right? If FOMC, excuse me, isn't as bad as some people anticipated it to be. So what I'm trying to say right now is the fact that the market's artificially pumping. All right. If FOMC is not that bad, we could continue to pump. But before that, it looks like we're going to pump approaching the big date, approaching November 2nd. This means that seeing this big bounce right here, seeing Tesla getting a very nice bounce, a nice push to the upside and holding up pretty well, it's looking like we're about to approach a very critical level at about 230 a share. So watch that very, very carefully. Zooming out of the chart like this, all right? Uh, what you will notice is Tesla actually got a clean break above previous resistance, and we got a very nice bounce off 198. We came up and we started to consolidate in this range for quite a bit of time. That's a very, very good sign to see Tesla consolidating like this. Came down a little bit before getting a nice bounce and continuing to push to the upside from there. So once again, very nice to see that. And we could see there's a lot of chop around this like 226 level. We actually broke above that, so it's another very good sign. If we get a break and hold above 230 on Tesla, okay, this thing is likely going to fill the gap up here to this 238 range, which means that Tesla could approach that 240 zone pretty quickly if we see a big continuation of this push, which I believe we likely will. So I am more bullish than bearish on Tesla for the short term based off everything that's going on. I also want to talk about what the data is showing. Looking down at this right here, we can see the market tends to be correlated with Tesla. We're getting a nice pump on the SPY. The SPY was actually showing more strength than Tesla from the beginning, and now Tesla, of all things, is starting to pump to the upside too. Looking at the price pairs ratio, we're seeing a nice push to the upside, which is a sign of strength for Tesla, which is showing more relative strength than before. On top of that, I've already mentioned to you guys, many analysts are still very bullish. And then looking on Mondays, 53% of the time Tesla tends to actually be green, which means that we're most likely going to see more green from here. On top of that, looking at the overall short interest of Tesla, you will notice there was a big spike when Tesla came down pretty hard because of the whole China news that came out. I'm sure you guys remember that. It's very political, so I don't want to go into the full details. But for the time being, the short interest is starting to come down a bit. So for Tesla, I'm anticipating more upside. However, the only thing that I'm a little bit concerned about would be this news right here. Not to mention like FOMC, but that's just a little bit later. This news right here is more recent. That's the fact that we're seeing more of these lockdowns in Shanghai, China. Now, this is going to be big because remember, Tesla has the big gigafactory in Shanghai. It's their biggest one, their most powerful one, which is the most explosive one for the share price. If this continues, this can have a very big effect on production in Shanghai. And I'm very kind of like concerned about that. I'm not seeing any indications that this is actually slowing down production just yet or anything like that. So I'm still optimistic, but it is something to really keep in your mind because this is going to be very important for Tesla. Much of their sales do come from China. Now, on top of all this big news, Elon Musk actually finally ended up buying Twitter. And that to me is a very awesome piece of news that came out. Now, Musk buying Twitter means he's going to make a lot of big improvements to the company. He is the chief tweet, if that's what you want to call him that. Now, he's going to show a lot more bluntness in his tweets. That's pretty cool too. And he's going to make big improvements to it. Now, for Tesla investors, they're wondering, all right, is Elon Musk going to sell more Tesla shares? As of right now, at the time of recording this, there is no indication of that. And on top of that, being the owner of Twitter, excuse me, being the owner of Twitter, Elon Musk is going to make a lot of changes to the company. It's going to take up quite a bit of his time, but I don't really see this as a concern because much of what Tesla is doing, like I mentioned, is already planned out. They're going to be working on their AI, they're going to be working on their robotics, their humanoid robot, their cars, deliveries. Things are still very, very bright for the future. I'm not necessarily worried. I do want to note something else that's important though, and for like a longer time frame, I don't think Tesla's just out of the woods just yet when it comes to us just rallying to the moon because you have to remember guidance for Q4 has been adjusted. Tesla on their earnings call mentioned that in Q4, production and deliveries may have a massive, massive difference because of the fact that looking at production means we're seeing demand dropping in China and in different places around the world as used car prices are starting to actually come down as well. This is having a big effect on many investors as rates are going up. So this may actually cause Tesla's Q4 to not show as many deliveries as the amount of cars they produce. So please be on the lookout for that. But for the more short term, for the next like trading day or two, I'm anticipating more upside for Tesla. I still think that the market has room to go. And I do believe that this run up is very artificial from the markets. But overall, guys, we're seeing nice momentum and a big push for continuation. On the SPY, looking at SPY real quick. All right. The SPY got a nice push up. We're actually green in the after hours. We managed to actually break 390 in the after hours. So I'm looking at this very carefully. And it looks like we have lots of momentum and we're going to break past 390 very soon. Where could the SPY go to just for like a super short term target? Could we actually go all the way up to this like gap fill zone? Well, before we get there, we need to get a clean approach of 400. So if we could actually approach 400 and actually break past resistance, it is possible for this thing to go flying very fast. But for the time being, let's just see this thing hold 390 first. It looks very explosive, so there is lots of room for us to continue pushing. I don't know how long this push is going to last because many people think it's going to last like past midterms or going into midterm elections, which is going to be November 8th. But remember, 6 days before midterms, we have FOMC. And what the Fed does is going to have a big effect on how we really move approaching midterms. So be on the lookout for that. Something else that's very important to look at would be, let me pull up my other charts, the QQQ. It actually reached one of my previous targets in one of my previous videos. I talked about the 280 zone for the QQQ, and we actually broke above it. So now we're on the verge of retesting the 284 to 285 range, which is once again a very bullish signal. And I do believe it's very possible for the NASDAQ. Once again, looking pretty bullish. My target on the NASDAQ was this kind of like demand zone that actually comes up here. We could see about that 11,200 zone, get a clean break above that. Then I'm going to be watching this previous support zone around this like 11,375 zone. Once again, very possible for the NASDAQ to actually reach levels like that. So once again, guys, we're seeing lots of nice bullish signals for the short term, and I'm just talking about the super short term, just the next like few trading days. Where we move after that depends on FOMC, and if that's like pretty decent, if the Fed is not as hawkish or announcements do not cause a big drop in the markets, then we could continue to push after that. On the VIX, I'm noticing that, let me see, we're coming down pretty hard, and we are actually approaching a support zone, which is around that 25.4 to $25 level. We do have more potential to actually retest it, and if we do get somewhat of a bounce here, this could cause a little bit of sideways action, but we do have potential to continue coming down to this 24 level. Very possible as well. So the VIX is not showing signs of it like pushing to the upside. It looks like it's going to continue dropping, which is a good sign for the markets if you want to interpret it that way. It looks like the market has more potential for upside, in my opinion. So with that said, thank you all for listening. Enjoy your weekend. Elon Musk is officially the main owner of Twitter. He has big updates for us. He's doing so many great things. So please do not trivialize these big decisions. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And just note that the future for Tesla is still very bright, regardless of what goes on with Twitter or the news. I'm still very bullish. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon because the long term future is still incredibly bright, and peace out.